Fatherhood has been looking through a two-way mirror, looking out at my life as a father to my 29-year-old daughter, and looking back at my relationship with my own dad. The two visions seem very different to me and not always compatible. Raising a child has been one of the most life-affirming and joyful celebrations of my life. Being the second child of my father has been a bit more problematic and not always affirming or self-promoting. I know my first conscious thoughts about becoming a father at age 32 were a reaction to my own father and what I wouldn't do or who I wouldn't be with my child, judging, critical, unavailable, and unsupportive. But when Tegwin came into the world, my natural instincts took over, and I wasn't focused on how not to be. I was just all there right from the beginning. I remember the first time I met Tegwin. She had just been cut from her mother's belly during an emergency C-section. And because her mom was in the recovery room for an hour or two after the operation, she was my charge. What an unsuspecting gift that was to me. When they brought her to me, she was brand new, wide-eyed and swathed in a blanket. I figured that for greater bonding, I should have our skins touch, so I took off my shirt so she could rest against my belly. She was perfect, with a perfect round head, wrinkled fingers so soft and translucent, and with surprisingly long fingernails. Her eyes just locked on to mine. I was amazed at how present and aware she was, especially being so new to the world. We stayed like this for an hour until I got to carry her in my arms to her mother in the recovery room. My mother, who happened to be visiting when Tegwin was born, found the whole bonding thing a bit unusual and didn't quite know what to make of it. I don't remember my first conscious memory of my father. He was 34 when I was born. But I do remember early activities together that were very enjoyable. Learning how to swim, taking rides in the car together. He recognized some of my early strengths and rewarded them, like buying me a unicycle, which I would learn to ride, and giving me tennis lessons, which started a lifelong love of the sport. When I was 12 years old, he taught me to drive, and we would tool off to the store together in his Austin Healey convertible, me in the driver's seat sitting on a dictionary when I could barely reach the clutch, and him in the passenger seat. One time we got stopped by the cops, and he fiercely defended me while accepting a ticket on my behalf at age 12. My adolescent, rebellious years started a disconnect or a pulling away, a separation that never quite came back together. Once I had a political and a life framework, it didn't fit with his. My dad had been a decorated captain in the Army in World War II with a lot of action under his belt, and he was an attorney all his professional life. In high school and beyond, at the dinner table or just sitting in the den, I felt like I was on trial, being cross-examined by opposing counsel, and I invariably felt silenced and crushed. We would argue about everything. I remember an argument about mineral rights, and because I didn't know that they were not innately tied to the owner of the surface property, he called me stupid. I felt skewered and dumb, and that's how it went for years. When I decided to enter the Peace Corps, he thought it was an ill-advised decision. In the end, that decision changed my life and illuminated the path that I have followed ever since. We would argue about apartheid in South Africa and whether health care was a basic right to defend. It went on and on. Tegwin had her rebellious years too, but it didn't stop our conversation. although we would really get into it. I trusted her instincts. She didn't overdo substances or cause undue worry about getting home late and things like that. I guess the hardest period for us was when she decided to live full-time with her mother during her junior and senior years in high school, after having split time between us since she was under 2 years old. She felt pressure and embarrassed having a gay, non-conforming dad, and that caused her great angst. I finally had to understand and let her go, but it was painful. She is totally over that now. In fact, she was ever since high school ended, and we are as close as ever. We talk all the time, and she calls with questions or advice about work or relationships or money. There's not much that goes unsaid. One of my most consistent refrains to her is to trust herself and to believe in herself. She has always made good decisions, and she can bank on that. There is no steely silence between us. Like the relationship I had with my dad until the end of his life. This exercise has offered me space to examine that relationship and remember not only the silence, but the fun times we shared. We could certainly laugh together and find humor in silly things, and we were totally in sync over the death of my mother, his wife for 46 years. As I'm getting older, I see myself a little more like him all the time, not always in good ways, and I even wish to be more like him in other ways. I would like to be more bold and more business and financially astute, and I find myself getting judgmental over incompetence or judging someone for the wrong reasons. It has given me a filter from which to empathize with his role as a father to me. Selfish, headstrong, rebellious me, who he kept loving even though he couldn't say it.